Hello everyone, welcome to day 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Let's begin by settling into our mindful bodies, finding a position that's strong and straight, and just breathing in deeply and preparing ourselves to receive today's awesome lesson. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's plan, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet, after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. Yes, it maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. And just continuing to breathe in and out deeply as we listen to the passage. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine: seek, but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? Channelize. What a great verb. Very silly, appropriate for Jesus here. God's plan for salvation works simply because by following His direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided, and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. Yes, this is where many spiritual students are stuck, with one foot in both worlds. And the insanity of it is so stressful for us. Two masters. We cannot have two masters. Paragraph 6. How can we escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. But all things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of His plan, which cannot fail. That is so comforting, because my plans can fail, but God's cannot. Hooray. Paragraph 8. Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all of your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, yes. But God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Amen. Paragraph 9. Remember this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal His plan to us. Ask Him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Underline these words. They are pivotal course words for all students. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Give Him full charge of the rest of the practice period and let Him tell you what needs to be done by you in His plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear His voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation and only His will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Each time a grievance arises, we say to ourselves, holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see where it is. A very persuasive argument. There's no better way to spend half a minute 6 or 7 times a day. And can we not even do that? Is that too much to ask? Is that how little we can commit? Let's begin our extended practice. I hope at this point you have been practicing breathing in and out, allowing the review of other insane plans for salvation to arise in your thinking, and repeating today's idea. Only God's plan for salvation will work, and what a relief that my ridiculous plans to find worth, to find hope, to find trust and peace, they can't work because they aren't. They don't. And so we have another path to truth. Breathing in deeply, allowing a review of any of our other insane plans for salvation to arise. What are the people, circumstances, events, situations we need to arise so that we can feel worthy, safe, easy, peaceful, wise, content, happy, joyful? What's the Jenga that the universe has to play to please us? And just noticing any sense of anxiety that arises as we explore where we cannot control external events and people. Breathing in and out, continuing to release our grievances in favor of accepting God's plan for salvation, the only one that can work. And just noticing the insanity of our thinking. If this were different, I would be saved. Meaning, I would be happy. I would be content. I would feel easy. I would feel successful. I would feel safe. I would feel comfortable. And how self-centered and ridiculous it is that the changes of mind necessary for salvation we demand from everyone else, but nothing from ourselves. That's how the ego practices. That's how we have been trained, and we train ourselves. Everyone else is an idiot. I'm in the right. I'm a victim of the world I see. It's impossible. It's untenable, and it's so terribly painful. And for spiritual students, for those of us who look around at our lives, at the world, and know there's more than this physical stuff. Because a lot of people aren't there, but they'll get there when they get there. A lot of people don't care, right? A lot of people close to us don't care. We don't have to fix them. We are only responsible for our own minds. And that is very powerful. That is a remarkable act of control in the world, to change my own mind. As we continue to review the insane attempts and mad proposals, as Jesus puts it, we have invested in, the illusions we have invested in to free ourselves from suffering. Notice where they have led to depression and anger. Despite all of my hard work, my kids aren't as successful as I want, or they're making the same mistakes I made. I'm not able to help prevent them from making ridiculous mistakes that derail their lives. So these insane attempts and mad proposals to free ourselves from suffering lead to depression and anger. Breathing in, God's plan will succeed. Breathing out. Breathing in, God's plan leads to release and joy. Breathing out. Now let's sit together in silence, and we have a little bit of practice from the previous 2 days meditation where we visualize cutting through the circle of clouds, moving beyond the hurricane that obscures light, ease. And let's ask our Father, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Notice any intuitive messages that arise. Doesn't have to be a burning bush or a blazing white light. Just, what do you hear? Be easy, be gentle, be kind. Be kind to yourself. Slow down. Have fun. Enjoy the little things. And as we conclude today's practice, saying together, holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. We are invited to review this last thought several times an hour. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Breathing in, we ask for the willingness to release all grievances. As they continue to arise, we continue to ask for this willingness. And breathing out, only God's plan will work. I just loved today's meditation. I'm so grateful to have shared this with you. Thank you for joining with me today. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for lesson 72. Bye-bye.